Welcome back, viewers. This is the final session we'll be having as far as this topic trigonometry is concerned. In this final session, we'll be discussing trigonometric equations, how we can be given a particular mathematical equation that contains, of course, the trigonometric ratios. I'll be asked to find the solution as far as the trigonometric functions are concerned. Now on the screen, we are asked to find the solution for the following equations from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. What that means is for us to find the solution for that particular trigonometric equation, by considering all the 4 quadrants which I have discussed in the previous session. Alright, we have question 1. We are told that if 2 cos square x plus cos x minus 1 is equals to 0, we are asked to find the values for x as far as the 4 quadrants is concerned. Alright, 2 cos square x plus cos x minus 1 equals to 0. We are asked to find the solutions for all the values of x as far as the 4 quadrants are concerned. Okay, so the equation we have is 2 cos square x plus cos x minus 1 equals to 0. We are asked to find this solution from 0 degrees to 360 degrees, all the 4 quadrants. We have cos square here and we have cos x here. So we try to replace it. Since this is squared, that means if we try to replace it, we can have a quadratic equation. So we say let cos x be equals to maybe y. So this cos square now becomes y square. So that gives us 2y square plus y minus 1 is equals to 0. 2y square plus y minus 1 equals to 0. Now of course, you know how we solve quadratic equation. We are going to factorize. Sum is the coefficient of y here, which is 1, and of course our product is a and c. 2 times minus 1, which is minus 2. So I'll think of 2 numbers such that when I add, I'll have the sum as 1, multiply, I have the product as minus 2, and the 2 numbers are actually 2 and minus 1. 2 minus 1, that's 2 plus minus 1 will give you 1, which is our sum, and 2 times minus 1 will give you minus 2, which is our product. So our quadratic equation is 2y square plus y minus 1 equals to 0. The 2 numbers are plus 2 and minus 1. So we have 2y square plus 2y, then minus 1 here means minus y, then minus 1 that is here is equals to 0. We use these 2 numbers to replace our sum here, which is plus y, as 2y minus y. 2y minus y of course will give you the y that was there. We now pay these brackets together and factorize. So we have 2y squared plus 2y in brackets, then minus into y minus 1 is equals to 0. We factorize. 2y is here, 2y is here, we bring it out into y plus 1 minus 1 into y plus 1 equals to 0. Alright, so the 2 factors now, the brackets are the same, we pick 1, y plus 1, and what is outside is 2y minus 1. So 2y minus 1 is equals to 0. So what this means is that y plus 1 is equals to 0, or 2y minus 1 is equals to 0. So here y is equals to minus 1, or 2y is equals to 1, making y to be equals to what? 1 over 2. So the 2 values we are having for y are minus 1 and 1 over 2. Take note, we said let cos x be equals to y, and the 2 values of y now are minus 1 and 1 over 2. So we recall that cos x was equals to y. Okay, now that y is minus 1 and also y is 1 over 2. So we pick the first one as minus 1. So that means cos x is equals to minus 1. Alright. Now what value of x for the first quadrant? Now what value of x will give us minus 1? In the first quadrant, take note, if you can see, recall, we did this in the last video where we had A, we had S, we had T, and we have C. In the first quadrant, all the trig ratios for all the angles from 0 degrees to 90 will give you positive values. So there is nothing that will give us minus 1, so there is no solution. In the second quadrant now, only sign is positive, meaning cos x to be minus 1 means it's possible, because in that quadrant cos is negative. So what value of x will give us minus 1? We start by knowing the value of x that will give us 1. Now from the special angles we had, cos 0 gave us 1, In the second quadrant where the angle is 180 minus theta, what is going to be theta for me to have 0 at the end of the day, because cos 0 will give you 1. So what will be theta for you to have 0 left? In the second quadrant, the angle was 180 minus theta. Okay, so that means theta must be 182 for me to have 180 minus 180 to give me 0. Then cos that will now give me 1. So that angle is 180 degrees. So we have the first solution for x as 180 degrees, because in that quadrant the angle was 180 minus 180. Okay, so 180 minus 180 of course will give us 0, and cos 0 is 1. Since in that quadrant cos is negative, so we have 1 left at the end of the day. Alright, we now move to the last quadrant. What am I going to now? Cos what? That's the third quadrant now. Cos what will give me 0 degrees, such that cos 0 will now give me 1 back. That means it has to be minus 180, because I told you that the quadrant day, in that quadrant the trig ratio day the angle day is 180 plus theta. The angle in the third quadrant is 180 plus theta. So what will you have as theta to give us what will you have as theta to give you 180, such that when you add to 180 you have 0. 180 plus minus 180 will give us 0. And here we've already taken care of 180, which is, actually cos is called an even function, because minus cos theta will give you cos minus theta. So there's no need to find of course minus 180 again, because we've already gotten 180 here. Alright, so we are done with that one. We now move to the last quadrant, which is 360 minus theta. What will be theta for us to have 0 degrees left? Alright, in that quadrant cos is positive, that's why we have C. But here we're looking for a value of minus 1. So even when we have theta as 360 degrees in the fourth quadrant, giving us 360 minus 360 to give us 0. Cos 360 will give us 1, not minus 1, because in that quadrant cos is positive. So the only solution as far as minus 1 is concerned as a solution is 180 degrees, which is in the second quadrant. Now we also recall that cos x is equals to half now, where it is half. Alright, in the first quadrant, what will be x for us to have half? If you make reference to your special angles, you notice that cos 60 will give us half, positive 1 over 2, that's 0.5. So for cos x to be equals to half means x here, the first value of x in the first quadrant has to be 60 degrees. Alright, in the second quadrant cos is negative, but here we are looking for positive half, so there can be no solution there. In the third quadrant too, cos is also negative, but here we are looking for plus 1 over 2, so there is no solution there. And finally, in the last quadrant, cos is now positive, meaning it's possible to have the plus 1 over 2 as an answer. Alright, so what will give us 1 over 2? The angle has to be 60 degrees. And what is 60 degrees in the fourth quadrant? The angle in the fourth quadrant is 360 minus theta. So what will be theta for you to have 60 degrees left? That means theta has to be 300. So that means the solution there is 300 degrees. If you press your calculator, cos 300 degrees will give you 0.5, which is 1 over 2. Alright, so as far as that trigonometric function is concerned, 2 cos square x, I think it was plus cos x minus 1 equals to 0. As far as this equation is concerned, for 0 degrees to 360 degrees, the solutions to this particular trig function is, of course, 60 degrees, and the next one is 300 degrees and also 180 degrees. These are the solutions to that trigonometric functions, which sometimes in an exam scenario you can be asked to write this in pi form. 1 pi radian, take note, 1 pi radian is equals to 180 degrees. So this 60 degrees here actually means pi divided by 3, because 180 divided by 3 will give you 60 degrees. Okay, so 60 degrees means pi over 3, 180 here means just pi alone, and 300 degrees in 300 degrees, if you want to write it in pi form, that means 300 degrees all over, that's 300 pi all over 180. You know, pi over 180 is actually 180. Sorry, this pi over 180 is 1. Pi can cancel pi. 180 can cancel pi as 1, so you have 300 left. So you just introduce that pi over 180. to be able to express this in pi form. So 0 will cancel 0. 3 into 18 is 6. 3 here is 10. 2 here into 6 is 2 here is 3 and 2 here is 5. So we have 5 pi all over this. So 5 pi over 3 is the value for 300 degrees in pi. You just pick that angle, multiply by pi, divide by 180 and cancel things out. That will give you the value in pi. So pi over 3, which is for 60 degrees, pi which is for 80 degrees, and 180 degrees, and 5 pi over 3 which is for 300 degrees are the solutions to that particular trigonometric equation. 2 cos square x plus cos x minus 1 equals to 0. Alright, so back to our question now. We have question number 2. Sin square x minus cos square x is equals to 1 over 2. And we are asked to find the value for x from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. For sin square minus cos square is equals to 1. Alright, I'll be solving the second example here again so that I can explain, and the third example, well, I would love to leave it to you to solve, but be it as it may, let's look at the second example. Sin square x minus cos square x is equals to 1 over 2, and we are asked to find the value for x from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. Alright, so on the screen you can see that we have sin square x minus cos square x is equals to 1 over 2. We have two different trigonometric ratios here, sine and cos. We need to replace it. Either we change sine to cos or we change cos to sine by recalling the first trigonometric identity, that sine square x plus cos square x is equals to 1. Don't forget, one of these videos I have shown you the trigonometric identities as sine square x plus cos square x being equals to 1, 1 plus tan square x being equals to sec square x, and 1 plus cos square x being equals to cosec square x. Alright, so here we have sine square plus cos square is equals to 1. I can make sine square the subject. So I have sine square x to be equals to 1 minus cos square x. I take cos to this other side. So I have 1 minus cos square x. Okay, so I'm going to replace 1 minus cos square x wherever I see sine square x. So I'll come back to my original question. Sine square x now becomes 1 minus cos square x. Okay, then minus cos square x is equals to what? 1 over 2. So this will give me 1 minus cos square minus cos square is minus 2 cos square. It's like saying minus 1 minus 1. That's minus 2. So minus 1 minus cos square minus another cos square is minus 2 cos square x, and this equals to 1 over 2. So if I have minus 2 cos square x here to be equals to 1 over 2, 1 to this side will give us minus 1. So I have minus 2 cos square x to be equals to 1 over 2 minus 1 will give you minus 3 over 2. You can do LCM and check it out. 1 over 2 minus minus 1 over 2 1 over 2 minus 1 will give you minus 1 over 2. 1 over 2 minus 1. You know, inside 1 we have 1 over 2 and another 1 over 2. So if I'm now saying 2 minus 4, that gives me minus 2, because inside 4 you have 2 twice. So inside 1 you have 1 over 2 2 times. So 1 over 2 minus 1 will give us minus 1 over 2. So what we're having here is minus 1 over 2. Alright, so if I divide both sides by 2 now, so I divide this by 2, divide this by 2. So this and this is gone. In fact, minus minus can also go. So I have that cos square x is equals to 1 over 2 divided by 2 will give us 1 over 4. That's 1 over 2 times 1 over 2. That will give us 1 over 4. And if I make cos x alone the subject, square to this other side will give me plus or minus square root of 1 over 4. So this implies that cos x is equals to plus or minus square root of 1 over 4 will give us plus or minus 1 over 2. Alright, that square root of 1 is 1, square root of 4 is 2. So we're having plus or minus 1 over 2. So we also check for the solution in all the 4 quadrants. Now we start with the plus 1. When the value is plus 1 over 2, so we have cos x to be equals to 1 over 2. We start from the first quadrant. What will be x for us to have 1 over 2? That means x has to be 60 degrees. I think we've already done this today. So x has to be 60 degrees for us to have 1 over 2, because cos 60 will give us 1 over 2. Alright. Now in the second quadrant, cos is negative, so we can't have a positive 1 over 2. In the third quadrant, cos is also negative, so we can't have a positive 1 over 2. So finally, in the last quadrant where cos is positive, what value of theta will mean 60 degrees? In that fourth quadrant, the angle is 360 minus theta. So theta has to be 300, so that when you say 360 minus 300, that will give you 60 back. So that means the angle we are looking for there, which is equivalent to 60 degrees, is 300 degrees. Alright, so that's the solution when we have cos x to be equals to half. And when we also have cos x to be equals to minus half, in the first quadrant there is no solution because all the trig ratios there are positive. In the second quadrant, cos is negative, so what value will give us 60 degrees? Second angle in the second quadrant is 180 minus theta, so theta has to be what for us to have 60 degrees? That means theta has to be 120, because 180 minus 120 will give us 60 degrees. So that means the angle there is 120 degrees. You can check with your calculator, because 120 will give you minus 0.5, which is the minus half we are talking about. Alright, and also finally in the last quadrant, which is the third quadrant, we are looking for the negative. We won't talk about the fourth quadrant because we've already considered it when cos x is equals to 1 over 2, because that one is positive. In the third quadrant, cos is negative because it's only tan that is positive in the third quadrant. Alright, now what is the equivalent of 60 degrees in the third quadrant? Angle in the third quadrant is 180 plus theta. So if I'm looking for 60 degrees, that means theta is 240. 180 plus 60 will give me 240. So the angle in the third quadrant that means 60 degrees is 240 degrees. Alright, so that's 240 degrees. If you press your calculator, cos 240 degrees will give you minus 0.5, which is minus 1 over 2. So ladies and gentlemen, the solution for that particular trigonometric equation is actually 60 degrees, which is pi over 3. Okay, 300 degrees, which of course I've already shown you have 5 pi over 3. 120 degrees. Now 120 degrees, if you want to write it in terms of pi, okay, so that will give you 120 times pi all over 180. Okay, so 0 cancels 0 here. 6 into 12 here is 2, and 6 into 18 here is 3. So that will actually means 2 pi over 3. That's the value for 120 degrees in pi form. And finally, the solution also is 240 degrees. So that trig ratio, that trig equation rather, has 60 degrees, 300 degrees, 120 degrees, and 240 degrees as the solutions for all the 4 quadrants. Sometimes the examiner can ask you to find the solution from 0 to 180. That's that's the first 2 quadrants alone, first and second quadrant. So in that case, the solution would have been 60 degrees and just 120 degrees alone. Alright, that has been our session as far as trigonometric equations are concerned. The last question, sin x cos x is equals to 2 sin square x cos square x. Just factorize sin x cos x on the right hand side and cancel it out, and of course you try to evaluate that. In the comment section, I would love to see your solution for that particular trigonometric equation. Of course, I shall tell you if you are correct or if you made a mistake somewhere. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that has been our sessions as far as trigonometry is concerned. I have extensively and comprehensively covered trigonometry as a topic. We have established what trigonometry is all about as a study of triangles with respect to their sides and angles. I've discussed trigonometric ratios as sine, cos and tan, cosec, sec and cot. Okay, I've also identified trigonometric identities as sine square x plus cos square x equals to 1, 1 plus tan square x equals to sec square x, and 1 plus cos square x equals to cosec square x. Also, we've established the sum and difference formulas. I've established the special angles, which I've shown you their values, and of course I've talked about complementary angles. And of course, finally in this session, I have discussed trigonometric equations. If you have any question, you have any comment, you have any observation, don't always fail to drop it in the comment section of this tutorial, and I, your teacher, will always be there to review and also to see the points you have to present. Thank you very much. Till we see you again in the subsequent videos where I'll be discussing some other topics. Bye for now.